Hi, and welcome to Senior Moments. I'm Jackie Sibley Newton, your host. This is a broadcast service of Cleveland Community College on Spectrum Cable. You can also see it on C19.tv, and we encourage you to share that link with family and friends who may not otherwise get to see the show and get this information that we're sharing. Today, my guest is attorney Greg McIntyre with McIntyre Elder Law. And Greg, you've been a guest on the show before, but it's been a while since we talked about elder law.
Yes, it has.
So I feel like we might need to revisit this.
Let's revisit.
Let's revisit this.
Okay.
Answer the question, what is elder law? What makes it different than just any other law firm?
Any other law, or,
Yeah.
So I say estate planning and elder law because people know what estate planning is a little more, I think.
Yeah.
It's really planning ahead, getting in place legal documents that both take care of you while you're alive, general durable power of attorney, healthcare powers of attorney, things where I can appoint a specific agent or person that I trust, that if something happens to me, the band can play on, they can pay the bills, they can make sure I'm taken care of, they can make smart healthcare decisions for me. That I appoint, that I don't leave that to the courts to appoint a guardian over me, being proactive.
Right.
And then there's putting in place, even on the estate planning side, minimizing taxation with passing assets, controlling how your assets pass, not just leaving that up to the legislature in Raleigh who passes the laws of intestate succession, because they have a plan for you, right? Yeah. But choosing yourself how you're going to pass your home that you've worked so hard for and paid the bank back for 30 years, Maybe, that could send someone to college, or that's a family home or a farm that needs to stay in the family. Really controlling that and making sure that those things pass. And then where the elder law component comes in is really keeping an eye on long-term care needs. Or how about the reality that 70% of us over 65 right now are going to need some type of long-term care in the future, whether that's in-home assisted living or nursing home care. Those are huge odds, and those should be planned for, because that is almost an inevitability. That could, because of the high cost sometimes of long-term care, could cause a family to sacrifice a home or their retirement savings, the things they've worked so hard for. So thinking about that as you're doing the estate planning, it's how can we put a plan in place that really helps protect those assets, avoids probate, where long-term care claims, if you have to access a benefit, can attach and take the home. That's really where the elder law component comes in, is thinking about long-term care, and really planning ahead with someone who is maybe heading into retirement or well into retirement. The earlier, the better. That's the elder law side.
Okay.
And, the thing I enjoy the most about it is dealing with my clients and having a relationship with them and their families.
Right.
So I think that's the most rewarding part for me. And also, the big wins are saving money, property, homes, while activating benefits to pay for long-term care.
Right.
And, I've been a huge advocate for that, and really strategist on the legal side to help build ways to do that, lobby in North Carolina to be kind to seniors. Ladybird deeds, for example, are huge.
Yeah.
I've been preaching about those for a long time now.
Explain what a ladybird deed is.
Sure.
People don't understand what that is.
So it's very, North Carolina is, and to the credit of our legislature and our governmental agencies is really a great retirement state and kind to seniors. In the fact, but you have to take advantage of the planning, right?
Right.
Like the tools are there. You just have to
But if
pick
you
them
don't
up
know
and
they
use them. Right?
exist,
You got to know they exist.
or that you're going to need them, maybe you
Right.
aren't ready for it.
Well, we can get into that, but people don't like to think about these things. These aren't really topics of everyday conversation,
Right.
but they're the conversations that you need to be having. A ladybird deed really built off the framework of a traditional life estate deed, where I'm going to say, look, I'm going to keep my home for the rest of my life. It's going to belong to me or me and my spouse. And when the last one of us pass, I'm going to have my kids receive it automatically outside of probate, just automatically by the contract of the deed. And so it functions a bit differently than a traditional life estate deed, the way the contract of the deed is written. But the benefits programs in North Carolina, both special assistance and long-term care Medicaid, which pay for assisted living with memory care, that's special assistance, or long-term care Medicaid that pays for nursing home, skilled nursing care.
Right.
They both allow a ladybird deed on a property, even within their look-back periods,
Okay.
which is 3 years for assisted living, 5 years for long-term care Medicaid. So even within the look-back period, to protect the primary residence and allow someone who has worked their entire life, paid 50 cents out of every dollar they earned on taxes, paid the bank back 3 times as much as they, for the 30-year mortgage as they actually, as the purchase price. And then because I access a benefit I've already paid for many times over again, I'm going to have to give up the house.
Right.
The legislature and our policymakers have said, no, we're going to allow someone to take advantage of a tool like a ladybird deed and keep and protect the home. And I think that is a great thing.
And not all
That is
states
a
honor
very
that,
American thing
right?
to do.
Not all states honor a ladybird deed, from
Yeah,
my understanding. So
well,
we're really
so
lucky
there's-
to be in a state that does.
We live in a United States, right? That's like this
Right.
federation, this of 50 states with 50 different sets of laws. So no matter what state you go to, the laws are going to differ.
Right.
North Carolina allows ladybird deeds.
Right.
South Carolina does not.
Yeah.
So yeah, you go 15 minutes down the road from where we're sitting, and you wouldn't
They
be
don't.
afforded that, but there would be other strategies. Don't worry. If they zig, we can zag.
can zag.
Okay,
You
that's
know the
correct. There's
zigging and
always
the zagging.
that's always the case. It's never
Yeah.
not going to be the case.
Okay.
It's a cat and mouse game, and also when we can get on the same page, it works and it's really nice. So that's a really nice thing that the state does to allow residents to keep their homes and not sacrifice them, even if they have to access a benefit for which they have already paid. But
Right.
yeah.
So when you're sitting down with a family and they're ready to start estate planning, then
Sure.
they're just talking about where we want the property to go and who's going to be in charge of what, and then you start talking about elder law. There's really no age, like a 30-year-old could come in and start talking about, I know that dementia runs in my family. There is a good chance I could need to be in a memory care unit at some point in my life. I need to plan for how expensive that's going to be. How can you help me get all of that? Is that that's appropriate conversation to have with your office?
Well,
right?
at 30 years old, I was invincible. Okay.
Right,
And I
nothing's
didn't
gonna
need to have
happen.
those conversations. So that's kind of the mentality sometimes.
Right.
Right. But estate planning encompasses all ages and all phases of life.
Right.
I have clients and parents of children who are going to college where we want to go ahead and put in place general durable power of attorney and healthcare power of attorney. Heaven forbid something happens while that child's at college.
Right.
So they don't get into guardianship situations. I have 30-year-olds that are having children, and it's even so important at that age to put in place estate planning, where we're talking about, okay, heaven forbid if something happens to me, my spouse, the parents, who's going to care for little Johnny?
Right.
right?
And protect what we have built this far.
Who's going to be, the recommended person that's going to be appointed guardian over that child, over the children, the minor children? Are there going to be, trusts set up where life insurance would feed into that and really fund, a trust that was a discretionary trust set up for health, education, and welfare of that minor child for the intention that it pay for college, university, or trade school until that child's 25, because we don't want to curse that child at 18 with too much money. If I would have had too much money at 18, probably wouldn't be sitting here right now,
Yeah.
I would have been really sad after I got out of rehab or something, if I'd have gotten $1 million at 18.
Right.
But, as we grow and get more education, you can really have that plan and the money behind it and trust, right? Schedule the disbursement of that plan and what it's used for. And then maybe from 25 on, we give out so much per year to help them get into career and life, things like that. Yeah.
And so that's protecting not only your assets, that's protecting your child. That's protecting your future as well, because everything is kind of in place for that future generation.
Right. Let's say I have life insurance and, my spouse is my primary beneficiary. Who's the secondary? Is it my minor children? Are they just going to get the bulk of that outright when I pass away if something happened, heaven forbid an accident, right? So it's having outlets for those things as well as real estate, other things, and really setting yourself up for success. Another thing that I find that does with a young couple, for example, or a young man or woman, when I'm meeting and planning with them, people that I'm meeting with, those are serious people. And they're interested in really examining the ways they can be, not just in estate planning, but they're usually looking at how they can be more successful in life, period.
Right.
With saving for retirement, business-minded, and they understand the estate planning piece is super important for them to get there. And that's part of that process for them a lot of times.
Now, in the ages of, let's say I'm getting ready to retire, like I'm planning to retire in another 5, maybe 10 years.
Okay.
And I haven't done any estate planning now.
Okay.
So I'm coming to talk
Jackie,
to you.
off camera we need to
What do
talk.
we need to do? What do we need to do?
I want to tell all these people how great you are, by the way.
Okay, go ahead.
Jackie,
Not really. No.
can I please? Can I
This is
take
your show.
a tasty
Talk to
cake
how
time
you-
out and talk about that?
Go right ahead.
This woman is a phenomenal person. I don't know what camera I'm talking to.
You're talking about.
Is a phenomenal person, okay? She runs a local assisted living place and helps care for my father and has done the most amazing job at helping me through one of the toughest situations in my life that I've ever faced, and making tough decisions for my parents, whom I love to death. And those decisions are so hard, and I'm torn up inside about them still. There's no perfect answer.
Right.
But you've made it so easy and easier. So I thank God for you.
Well, thank
and I really
you.
mean that. And
Thank
you're an
you.
amazing person.
That's one of the things
Yeah.
about.
They need to know that too.
That's not what we brought you on the show for,
No.
but thank you.
You're
because
welcome.
we are walking through this journey together. We're walking through this journey together as we're there to support you and your family as much as we are to take care of your dad. And we walk through this together, and nobody says in their 20s and 30s, hey, I want to go to a retirement, I want to go to an assisted living, I want to go to a memory care. Nobody says that.
No, and
Nobody
you never
thinks
think
about
that I'm not going to do that, right?
Right.
That's not going to be me. But life has a funny way of proving us wrong sometimes, or those are tough decisions.
They are tough decisions.
And the more you plan for those, the better.
The better you'll be.
The
Yeah.
better off you'll be.
Exactly.
Yeah, you hedge your bets, and you put the best laid plans right in place, and then hope for the best. How about
And
that?
you do.
Yes,
And
yes.
then you find the support that you need.
That's right.
In all the realms.
Well, it shows up, right? When
Yeah.
you need it,
Exactly.
it's going to be there. It's there, which
Yeah.
is phenomenal. If you've done the work, I think the more you help yourself, the more, and plan and are on top of those things.
That's the thing,
Yeah.
is getting caught in the crisis is when it gets hard.
Right.
That's when it's just frightening, because
Sure.
no planning is the most frightening thing, because then you're in a crisis mode and you don't have time to make all the decisions that you really want to make and all the research that you need to make and all the things that you want to do to pick all the right places. And thankfully,
And you were the scramble mode, or trying to. I think it's important to slow things down in those moments
and breathe.
And take a breath and think and look
Right.
around and find the best resources.
Right.
But I'm thankful that you were
Well, thank you so much.
a best resource.
Thank
How about
you.
that? Yes.
Well, we're going to take a break, and then we'll come back and we will talk more about planning for your future.
She gets her hair from her mom, her eyes from her dad, and her drugs from her home medicine cabinet. Fact: more people die from drug overdoses than from car crashes or gun violence. And over 50% of those deaths are from prescription drugs. Prescription drug abuse is preventable. 1. Secure and take regular inventory of our medications. 2. Dispose of unused or expired medications. 3. Share this message with others. Be aware, don't share, lock your meds.
We always have
That's
had a
true.
certain courtesy to other people upon their retirement or somebody's passing.
Well, I got something nice to say about our retirement.
Well, we're not.
Good riddance.
Oh, was it you?
First, he put giant flagpoles on the White House lawn like it was a Buc-ee's, and then he cemented over the Rose Garden. Then he turned the Oval Office into a place that looks like a New Orleans cat house.
Well, I'm sure President Obama evaluated both candidates and went with the best one, better one.
Yeah, one of them
But
had
I
a D
was-
by her name.
Well, one cannot help but wonder why. Betsy, one possibility would be that the Hurricanes are now afraid to enter the newly named Gulf of America while Trump's in the White House.
Monica, over here.
These are more than just the sounds of a safe place to go after school. These are the sounds of interest being ignited and of mentors making an impact. The sounds of tutoring and tech and health and fitness and arts and music. At Boys and Girls Clubs, we don't do just one thing. We do whatever it takes to meet the needs of every kid who comes through those doors. Because whatever it takes is what it takes to build great futures. Great futures start here.
Welcome back to Senior Moments. I am Jackie Sibley Newton, your host, and today we're talking with Greg McIntyre of McIntyre Elder Law, and we're talking a lot about how to avoid probate. And people may not understand, what is probate? What is that word? What does that even mean?
How and why? Probate. So we do a fair amount of workshops, and at
Yeah.
them, there's always a question of, or somebody says a bold statement, attorney, I'm not going to have to go to probate because I have a will. And I'm like, actually, in North Carolina, and really probably any state, but I'm an attorney in North Carolina, your will is not worth the paper it's written on, I like to say, because it's just a nice story. It's not really legally significant until after you pass away, and it's accepted into a probate court, into a court file,
Okay.
and kind of certified as meeting the qualifications under the NC statutes that it's a probatable will, which could mean it's self-proving and there's certain language that has to be there, or certain affidavits have been submitted along with it, that the witnesses saw the testators, that's the person who drafted the will, sign line of sight. That's probate. That's when you're actually beginning the probate process. Your will is submitted after you pass into probate, and it starts that process. Part of that court process is a notice to creditors period. That's where I'm going to publish for my client a notice to any creditors out there in the local paper in the county where they resided that this person passed away, this is the court file number, probate is open, and you can send claims to the probate file to be considered as debts of the estate.
Okay.
Now, we help negotiate down those claims or reject those claims. There are some valid claims, but the only real window that opens in North Carolina for a creditor, whether it's Visa, MasterCard, your neighbor, that says that you owe them money,
Right.
or NC Medicaid that paid for long-term care or special assistance. The only place they can come back and place an actual claim on your assets is in the probate estate during the 90-day window that opens after the first date of the publication to creditors period.
Okay.
So that opens, and if you want to send all your assets through that process to be subject to those claims, so be it. That's what a will does. And that
Okay.
might be the right answer for you. But that's a discussion that I have and our attorneys have with clients all the time. What is the best way? And everybody's an individual. There is no cookie cutter or one size fits all.
Right.
Everybody has a different family dynamic. They have different debts, liabilities. They have different asset makeups, and they have different wishes. Charitable gifting. They have different interests.
Right.
They may have special needs, children or grandchildren that they need to plan for. And there's cutouts or special needs trust or supplemental needs trust for those that work with benefits like SSI and Medicaid. Those are the things we consider. And whether, now probate to me and the will is a nice safety net. The safety net is, if there was something that you hadn't placed in your trust, or a piece of real property that wasn't passing automatically by some deed planning we did, like a ladybird deed,
Right.
that the will would be a safety net to pick those assets up that you didn't tell us about, that you acquired later and didn't put in the trust, or just inevitably a check that comes in after you pass away, something. There's always something.
That's something that
To
shows up.
pick that up
Okay.
and make sure it gets to where you want it to go. So that might be a nice assist. It might be the answer. And some people just want the will to have something in place, and it's better than nothing. But just know that that is probate. A will is probate.
100% of the time.
100% of the
It's gonna
time.
go. Okay.
There is no way you can take a will to a bank and try to move someone else's assets and say you're an executor. The bank's going to look at you and say, okay, where's the court order, the probate letters issued out of the probate estate, the probate file that you open with that will, that says that you're qualified by the court as an executor.
Okay.
That's what has to happen. That's what gives you the power as an executor,
Okay.
which is the one in the will that's in charge of transferring your assets. And they don't think, if you think about the name executor, that's not like you're not the contemplator or the thinker, you're the executor, and you execute the instructions in the will.
Right.
Similar to a trustee in a trust executes the instructions in the trust of the grantor, the trust maker, or the testator or the will writer, right? So that's what the executor does. And they have to be qualified by the court.
Okay. And they're not really qualified to do anything until after that probate
Just
period
because you
is
say so
over.
in your will doesn't mean anything.
Right.
The will has to be submitted and accepted into probate,
And go through that whole
and
process.
the executor has to apply to be the executor and be accepted as the executor by the court.
Okay. So if you really want to protect all of your assets, then going through things like the ladybird deed to automatically transfer
Wills aren't
it,
protection. Yeah,
those
will-
things,
yeah.
those things protected. Your will is basically saying this is what I want to happen. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to happen.
Sure. As the driver of my car, I can direct where my car is going to go.
Right.
By turning the wheel, right? I can map out my plan. That's what
Right.
the will is, right?
Right.
The protection really is, whether I'm driving a big tank or, or
Right.
I'm on a motorcycle, right? That's
gonna be a lot of
much
difference.
different, yeah,
Yeah.
as the direction your assets are going to go as to whether they're actually going to safely get there or not, and they're going to be protected in getting there, right?
So what documents do people need to have together when they come to talk to you? What kind of documents do they need to bring with them if they're bringing
We've
their
gotten a
folder
lot
with
better
them?
at this over time. Our firm has, I have. So we have a cool system called Your Legacy Estate Planning so I come from the software. I started programming in Shelby, North Carolina. Computers at like 8 years old. I was a little computer geek, okay? And I love that, right? And I was in the software industry at a young age before I went to law school, right? And so I have a company called Mindset Squared, and our programmers crafted this system. We send that out, and we start walking through and front loading as much as possible, getting in information about someone in their situation, so we can sit down with someone and have a really, really intelligent conversation in a consultation, right? So we can really fill out that information, and so we are armed with the knowledge and know the differences in
You
your
already
life.
have kind of a list of what their assets are at that point?
That
or-
system would work.
capture that?
Yeah, and I've got that right in the console.
Okay.
That's correct. We have estate planning client specialists that really call and help walk people through that even prior to meeting with us. So I'm very proud of that system. It's a really cool system. I've always wanted something that worked the way I wanted it to.
So you just wrote it?
Yeah, so we made
So we're
it.
just gonna
So we
write
made
that.
it, yes.
Okay.
Yes, we did.
All
Yes.
right. So they're going to want to have, and that's going to kind of walk them through.
What are
because
they gonna
everybody kind of
bring?
has different things.
Gosh,
so.
you could sit down with me and not bring anything, though, realistically, and I could pull most of it up. I can pull all the real property up, and I sit there and do that with my laptop right when I'm talking to
Okay.
somebody. And we look
Bank
at, and
statements,
we go through
deeds,
the
you can look through
assets,
all of
right?
that.
And I'm going to take all my notes, and then during that time, with my experience and my knowledge of estate planning and elder law, I'm going to start to formulate a plan and make suggestions. And it's a relationship, right?
Right.
I mean, the client's really, I'm cueing off the client as to what they want to do and what, how keen they are on protection versus control versus, qualifying for a long-term care benefit versus paying out of pocket, and how long their money is to be able to do that, where their danger zones are, and pointing those out. So
Yeah.
those are the conversations that I really enjoy having with clients. And the more you know, the more information that we can have, the more equipped we are, I think, to put together the best plan, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for
You're
being
welcome.
on the show, and thank you for entrusting us with the care of your father. I know
Sure,
that
sure.
you
Thank
and I
you.
have a special relationship, so I appreciate you being on the show
Absolutely.
and talking to us about estate planning. And I know that you have touched on you're living it right now with
Yeah.
a lot of different things. So I appreciate that. And thank you for watching the show. If you want more information about estate planning and elder law, there are some great workshops. I know Greg does some podcasts. There's a lot of free information provided by the law firm, but definitely look up McIntyre Law Firm, McIntyre Elder Law for more information about how to help with your future planning. And thank you again for watching Senior Moments. We'll see you back next time.